So, welcome back to the Culture, Leadership and EVP podcast. Today brings us to a slightly interesting location. We are at the Printworks campus, Leeds City College, and we've got two guests today. So we've got Lee from Printworks campus, Leeds City College, and we have Nikki from Leeds College of Building. So, tell us a bit about yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Lee Pryor. I'm principal here at the Printworks campus, which you say is part of Leeds City College, which is also part of the Lumen Education Group. I've been principal here now for the last 18 months. Before that, I was the director of apprenticeships for the group. Worked in FE now for 18 years, started right as a teacher, working my way up, course leader, to now today principal.
Yeah, Nikki Davis, Principal and CEO at Leeds College of Building, and I started working in FE in 2001 with my teacher training at what was Park Lane College, part now of the Luminate Group, and have then progressed to a number of colleges in West Yorkshire. I've been Principal at Leeds College of Building for about 2.5 years now, and before that I was Vice Principal.
Right, so we've got 18 years of further education experience, starting as, I think you said, a course leader?
Yep.
So almost at the very beginning. And then we've got someone that literally did their teacher training in the Leeds region and has then been in FE for 24
You don't have to make it sound like I'm really old.
Well, I stay with age and I stay closer to experience. So two incredibly experienced leaders. How long have you been in leadership roles?
About 12 years in total. So 6 years now at Leeds College of Building, and then in the prior role at York College before coming here.
I was in a leadership position prior to coming into education in the NHS. So I did about 3 years of leadership there, and then in FE, I would say now about 10 years.
So very experienced, you understand, and as we all know, FE changes over time. So we must be very adaptable, capable leaders. Yeah, but let me ask, what got you into further education? What attracted you to the sector?
For me, at the time, I was a service manager in the NHS, Women and Children's Services, working on a children's ward in a local hospital in South Yorkshire. We used to have a lot of students on placement from the health department coming to us, working on the children's wards. So I was a mentor to the students who were coming from the local FE college. And then one day a job came up as a teacher. I was at the point in my career in the NHS, do I go into senior management or do I go into teaching? This job came up in the FE. I'd already done a little bit of teaching in HE and went that route, and that's how I got into FE, really. Can
I ask why? What was the choice between the NHS and further education? Because lots of people will be looking at it as a choice now, and it's important.
Yeah, at the time, there was lots of changes, like there always is, in the NHS. And for me, it was about giving something back, even though part of that was in the NHS. And I wanted to work with the next workforce coming through as well. And this was a great opportunity that I could still, have a little bit of work in the NHS if I wanted to, but also developing the skills, what were needed, and what I know what was needed in the NHS and the healthcare service.
Brilliant. Nikki?
So I did my teaching practice at Leeds Trinity University. My PGCE in business and economics, and I was really fortunate because I had a teaching placement in a school and a teaching placement at Park Lane, and had I just had the school experience, I wouldn't be in education because it just didn't fit. Whereas when I went to Park Lane, it was almost immediate. It was just the connection with the students was there was a lot more fun than school environments. It was much more grown up relationship, and the students were making that connection to work. That was really, an interesting time. Teenagers are great, and they get a lot of bad press, but they are really, really great to work with because they're interesting. They've got so many ideas that you don't even think of yourself. And just that age group really appealed. So I was really lucky that I got a placement in both sectors so I could experience both.
Mm-hmm. And you've got that short period, right? In FE, we get them at 16, occasionally at 14. So we've got that short period where we know we're going to have maybe 2, potentially longer, but largely 2 years, but very formative 2 years. They've just left school, coming out into the world. They've got a lot of questions they want to answer. At this point, they're probably quite curious. I've done lots of talking with apprentices, lots of talking with full-time study students, and once you get them past the point of, oh, this is a new person, and you open them up, they are really curious and they have a lot to answer. So I'm really glad you saw both sides of that. So we've taken NHS to further education. We've seen secondary schools into further education. So what's then kept you in further education?
For me, and it's quite funny because it was just this last week actually, I was in Asda, in where I live, and I actually bumped into one of my ex-students from a number of years ago who's now just about to get their first leadership post in the NHS. And they actually said to me, do you remember, Lee, when we used to be late for class? I was like, yeah, probably. And you said to us, I remember, and they said it to me out loud in the middle of Asda, you used to say to us, that patient would die if we were late for class. I was like, did I really say that? And I was like, yeah, probably did actually. But they've remembered that, and they've remembered me. And for me, it's about making a difference. You know, our students who come through the doors, and we have about 2,500 16 to 18-year-olds here at Printworks, and sometimes it's about somebody believing in them. And this individual that I did speak to a couple of weeks ago started at level 1, so they came in with very limited GCSE grades and worked through the system, worked through level 1, level 2, and obviously doing level 3, then went to university, and are now obviously qualified nurse and about to take their ward sister's post, and probably started now. And it's about changing lives and transforming lives as well for me, and that's what's kept me in FE. And every year we have different learners, and you can see them starting their path. And when I meet all of our students in September when they start here, the one rule for this campus is wear your lanyard. The rest is about, this is their first step on their career, and they might start on that first ladder and they might want to be an engineer, but then after 2 years they might change that career path. We're here to support them.
No matter what, you meet that student where they are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's true for both organisations. I think the thing that motivates me within FE is it comes down to those individual students, the ones you remember. I remember students from my first year of teaching, students who had messed up at school, you know, and needed another chance to put their life back on the track it was on before they made some mistakes. And those individuals have now gone off to university, and you think you actually have made that difference. And now you see it with our cohorts. We have so many students who are the first in their family to go off to university. The earning potential that they can access once they've completed their studies, it is transformative. And you see those individual stories. It's important sometimes. You spend a lot of time looking at data and a lot of time looking at information, but actually when you dig into it, those individuals and the impact that the college has made, whether they've had a lot of support or very little support, you know, it's the difference the college has made.
And I think you're both selling yourself short there, because you're talking about those individuals, but the impact to those individuals' families and the generations that are going to follow beyond that. Yeah. When you've got we did an impact report recently where you look at the impact that a good educator has. So say they have 3 groups, 30 students. If those 30 students, they're 90 in total, all go on to earn an extra 30% than they would have done if they hadn't completed those courses, and they all go on to have a partner, and they all go on to have a family of 2, you've impacted something like 300 people's lives really quickly. Like, I know you've had them for 2 years, but you leave those people so much better than you found them. And people in FE, they think about the day-to-day, they think about the impact there, but that is such a wider, more impactful piece. So we now have a really good idea what's kept you in further education, what motivates you, what drives you. What would you say to someone that wants to enter further education? What's your bit of advice, your golden ticket?
I think for me is just to have a go. I think there are a lot of people, particularly in construction, that perhaps look at teaching and think of it as an academic route, and maybe are a little nervous about coming into a college to work with students. Some people who might be nervous about working with teenagers and that age group, but absolutely just come and have a go, because there's a huge amount of support that we can offer. The careers that people can access, it's lovely. I was talking to one of our brickwork lecturers earlier this week, and he was saying how proud he was of his student's piece of work that he'd just completed, and how much of a privilege it was being able to teach this person the skills that this apprentice has now got. And you think that's why people want to work in FE, is about that giving back and sharing those skills. And people underestimate the skills they have. And the influence a teacher can have on an individual student. So just have a go.
So with that have a go piece, do you offer taster days for people that want to get into education? Would you come and show someone around the workshops? Maybe not introduce them to learners, I understand there's a safeguarding to go through there, but would you let them come and see the workshops, different teaching styles?
Yeah, absolutely. We have done open events for teaching roles to try and attract more candidates to come in, just to get people through the door and to experience the college in a less formal way than an interview situation. And I think that does help if they can then spend a little bit of time wandering around, accompanied by somebody in a workshop and speaking to staff and students, because it takes that the unknown away. They get a good understanding of what the college is like, and you get that immediate feeling about a place.
You get a sense as you walk through the culture in effect, right?
I think for me, I'd say do it. It's interesting. This week, actually, we've got a new person who started, who was one of my ex-students a number of years ago, who has decided to enter FE. He went away and did health and social care, and then went and did medical engineering. He's now coming into the FE world. He's been with us a couple of weeks now. Started off in a pastoral kind of role, but he's now wanting to go into that teaching role. And for me, it's about how we support that individual. So, he's going to do his apprenticeship teaching starting in September. We'll support him with everything to become that outstanding teacher, outstanding practitioner. Because again, like what we said before, he was the first from his family to go to university. He's now come to us to give something back because he'd seen somebody who inspired him when he was at college. So for me, again, it's about come and have a go.
I see you do that quite often, Lee, because you've been in several places over time. You always refer back to previous students.
Yeah.
So you must stay in contact with them in a professional setting to make sure that they know that there are opportunities for them. But that is the full circle. That is people coming all the way around. What do you think strong culture and values look like in FE? Because we talked a little bit about how it feels as you walk into a college there. What does it look like to you two?
I think for me, and we've been doing a lot of work at Printworks in the last 18 months that I've been here. For me, we've had to get the culture right and the values right for our students as well as our staff. One of the things that I introduced straight away when I started here, which I've not been able to give up now, is my Principal Pryor's Friday Update email, which goes across Printworks. Too many P's there. But that is making sure that everybody within Printworks knows exactly what's going on all the other departments. We've got 7 departments here, what vary from, engineering to hair and beauty, but everybody gets that email on the Friday and knows exactly what's happening within this campus. And that has been a huge change because people come up. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I didn't send it till 9 o'clock and people were saying to me, where's the email? It's like, right, okay, I've just not had a chance this morning to send it. But yeah, for me, it's about we're in it together. Yeah. And we've got to be that partnership.
Yeah, and we're at a really interesting point with our values. We're just rewriting the strategic plan that's due for approval in April to be launched for the summer, along with a new website, a new brand. And so it's a really interesting time. And the process we went through to refresh the values of the college, the process was interesting. I went around every staff team. And we had conversations around what is the organisation that you want to work for, and what is it that you want our students to feel and to be part of. And without question, that a lot of them came back with very similar answers, which makes the job a bit easier to implement. But there were the values of inclusion and accountability, and some really key ones. And you think, actually, if the majority of your staff are saying this, then this is where you need to take the organisation. And now that they have been almost agreed, we're at a point now where you start to live and breathe those values and how you roll them through the organisation. They're not hugely different to the previous ones, but what we've done is specify what they mean to us. And that's an important distinction that we didn't have before. So at Leeds College building, these values mean this to us.
And that's what we do a lot of work with organisations of culture. That's something that I've been big on, hence the podcast. And when I say to someone, what's culture? They typically go, doesn't mean anything. because you can't define culture. It's the DNA, it's the feeling of a building when you walk into it. It's the way you engage with people. Culture is a set of standards and behaviours that define an organisation. That's culture, that's the actual meaning of it. And lots of organisations go about it like, well, we're trying to find this magical unicorn of culture. It doesn't exist. The thing that you've done, and that this is what I can see in different exercises, but that's called lived values, which is why it's not hugely different. Because actually, you'll recognise the organisation where it is today, taking those lived values and building a strategy around it. Super impressive, really impressive. And your direct communication, that's something that people scream for, which is the authenticity of the leader. I know sometimes, I'm sure you've sent something out and it's offended people, and I'm sure other times you've sent things out and it's made people's days. And that's the balance, and the risk of it is that direct style. So both of you take us very interesting routes and some exciting times ahead. So what's the best way to go about finding those values? You've said you've just gone through a project of kind of digging in and going around, but talk me through that a little bit.
So we started with a word cloud. Everyone just put down all the words that they could think of in terms of the organisation they want to work for and work within. And the discussions then focused on what did these words mean to people. It was kind of enlightening and reassuring at the same time that actually people were in FE for the same, not always the same reason, but really positive reasons. They might differ across individuals, but everybody was committed to the student. The student came through loud and clear in terms of the values of the organisation and how we respond and our to individual student needs, and that came through very, very strongly.
How did you go and find those? Was that through interviews? Have you done, other than a word cloud, were you just discussing it with individuals?
Just through conversations, and then going back and saying, this is what I've heard. Is this what you meant?
Okay.
And people had the opportunity to feed in various ways, whether it was attending interviews, whether it was meeting individually, meeting as departments, or just emailing.
Anything. Just get your opinion across to us, and we'll listen to it.
Yeah.
And how are you going to do the final sign off of those values? What's your plan?
Well, it's been through conversations with the senior team, with governors. It's literally just the formal sign off of the strategic plan we're waiting for now.
Exciting times ahead. Lee.
Very similar probably to Nikki there. We've got the golden thread because we've got the values of the Lumen Education Group.
Yes.
And then we've got Leeds City College. And then we've obviously got Printworks. And it would be interesting because I asked a couple of people recently, actually, where do you work? Do they work for Luminate? Do they work for Leeds City College? Do they work for Printworks? And the majority said Printworks, which is interesting. On their contract, it's Lumen Education Group. So for me, it's that sense of belonging as well to an organisation. For me, the values and the culture, again, as you said, walking into an area, and it might be different with the curriculum areas as well, but it's that golden thread throughout that we're all here for that one reason, and that's the students at the centre of everything we do. For me, slightly broader, that it's the students and the staff at the centre of everything that we do.
Amazing. You touched on something there that's an interesting point, is how does culture differ between campuses, between organisations? So I know that you've got two campuses?
Two campuses.
Yep. You've obviously got one, but you've touched on the fact that Luminate differs. So how does it differ from campus to campus? Do you see a lot of change?
Yeah, well, it's not just campus to campus. It's in our college we have three main faculties, and it's faculty by faculty. And the cultures are different in each, and there's no right or wrong. They're just, they all have their strengths and they all have their areas, to work on, but they are very different cultures, and that's the people that are working in there, and their experiences and development over time. Yeah. And I think there's the work to do now is to have some of that alignment across without losing the personality of each faculty, because you don't want to be compliance driven. You must all do X. You need to allow the individuals to lead and manage in the way that they want to, but some commonality going through.
And I like to call that the base layer of standards. So a campus or a faculty can improve upon a standard, but we must all comply to the minimum basic standard, and it could be things, very simple things, right? It must be we all treat each other with respect, and that means this. And as long as everyone at every campus agrees to that, you can go above and beyond. You can see a team or a faculty perform higher than that standard, hold themselves to a higher standard, but you can't water it down. And I see quite a lot of organisations recognise that in allowing the personality and the characteristics. Now, what about Printworks to illuminate?
Oh wow! So, or even to Leeds City College, you know, there are 3 main campuses within Leeds City College. Printworks just up the road, Quarry Hill, which is a new build. Printworks is a listed building, and then we also have got Park Lane, which is our 6th form, and some other provision as well. And we probably all slightly differ as well. Yes, we've got our common goal across the board for our students, but yeah, we slightly differ. You know, I'm just thinking Susie up at Quarry Hill has a very established management team. I have a very new management team here at Printworks, where, you know, we have been on a journey as well in getting what we need to do right. And again, across even the campus itself, as I said earlier, you know, health and hair and beauty will be very different to what digital and IT are doing from their kind of thing. So it varies across the board. But yeah, it's that golden thread. It's very much, we are a bottom-up approach.
Yep.
So yeah.
So both of you sound like you're at different stages in culture within the workforce. So Nikki, I think you're about to embark on a journey of embedding those values. And I think what you're saying is you've got quite mature values as an organisation, but new leadership, which brings with it its own change. So the question I suppose I'm asking is, what's the next phase of embedding these values or recognising these values within your organisations?
I think for us, because they are new but not dramatically different, it's around ensuring that they are lived. You know, that people understand that this is how we do things here, and where those, you know, where people may slip, that we support them to improve, because ultimately it's all to drive the student experience, and to make sure that they get the best deal possible, and equally to make a workplace that's, you know, fair for everybody, and everyone knows what to expect when they're working together, working with students, across faculties, across the whole college, that those values are lived. And I think that just comes down to consistency and being persistent. A
message, I guess, right? It's pushing them into organisation and then hearing their voice on that. And with your more mature values, but your new leadership team, what's the plan?
Again, it's, for me, key word for Printworks is consistency. You know, I've just gone through and I'm still going through recruiting some for 2 head roles at the moment. And it's, yes, I want someone who's going to be good in those areas, but also got to fit into the team Printworks ethos as well. So it's got to be the right fit, not just for the department, but for the wider picture as well. Again, the consistency piece is, for me, is the key thing and the key driver for here, for Team Printworks.
So, in your view, because there's lots of differing opinions on this, should students and staff all know your values? Should they be able to recite them?
For me, it's not about reciting them, and you know, we have lots of posters around the college saying what our values and mission and everything is. It's about how we work together, live and breathe them as students and staff across the campus. You know, if I went out here now and said to one of our students in business, can you tell me what our values are as Printworks? The one thing they'll probably say to me is wear your lanyard at all times, because they have that drummed in them from day one, that you must wear your lanyard. Other than that, they probably wouldn't be able to say anything. You know, my view is the students are here to have a good time, to pass their exams and progress. And that's why we're here. So, and I'm sure every learner that if we walk around the campus today, would be able to say that as well, that they're here to pass their qualifications, either move into an apprenticeship or into higher education. So I don't think it's important that the students can say, yes, this is what it says on the poster, because that will mean nothing to them. For me, it's about preparing them, and they act as a model citizen while they're here with us. Do
you think they could talk about how they were treated?
Absolutely.
So they could model them, but they could say their behaviours, right? They were treated with things like respect. They were included in things.
Absolutely.
There was no one left outside. You think they'd be able to communicate how it made them feel?
Absolutely. The inclusion bit, they would be able to say, you know, when you walk around, and when I speak to students outside, you know, they can tell me the great experiences that they're having. they're a little bit wary of telling me anything negative, but sometimes, you know, I tease it out of them, because if we don't know, we can't change anything, which is great. You know, the student voice for me is absolutely key, so that we can change things.
What about you, Nikki?
Yeah, I don't think students need to know it, because I think it reminds me, as Lee was speaking around when we do British values with students, and you know, you want them to be able to recite them all when Ofsted come through the door. But actually, do they know how to protect themselves? Do they know how to report things if they're not feeling? It's about how it's embedded and the behaviours that come from it. So you're right. It's do they feel respected? Do they feel as if they've had a voice? Have they been included? It's how it's made them feel in their experience, rather than whether they can learn them by rote. That doesn't really interest me.
Yeah, no. It's about the student, and all the staff can probably tell you how it makes them feel as well.
Yeah.
Some would, those that have been here a while, probably recite the values. But again, if they can't, they can articulate the feeling they should have when they come to work. That's the kind of answer that we're looking for. So both of you have been on this journey through culture. What advice would you give to anyone who's about to embark on embedding values within their organisation? What's the golden nugget from your experience that they need to get right?
I think for me it would be is go and talk to your staff. Go and talk to everybody you possibly can, because people maybe are a little reserved to start with, but very soon they forget that they're talking to the principal or whoever it is they're talking to, and you learn so much about what it feels like to be that member of staff, and you know, decisions that you make as a senior team, how it impacts on the end user. So I think it's really important to just go and take the time to speak to people, and not just to speak to them, but actually listen, and do something with it.
We've got a phrase in recruitment which is, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen.
Yeah, I think same as Nikki there, and try to be genuine. For me, you know, the changes that I've made here at Printworks is because I've listened to the staff and what they want. Not everything I've been able to do, but it's, for me, being genuine.
Well, we evolve, as humans have evolved to detect deceit or lies. We pick it up in body language. We scream and crave authenticity. If we see people that we think aren't real, humans, we're attracted to people that make mistakes. If you make a mistake, like someone says to you, good morning, when it's good afternoon, you laugh and you go, oh, this is a real person, it's not a robot. And that's what authenticity comes across. So being genuine is a huge integral part of that.
It's the, you know, you can't meet every demand. You can't do everything that everybody wants, and nor should you try. But you have to communicate why you can't do things. And as long as you're open and honest about things and transparent, people, I think, respect that as well, even if they're hearing something they didn't get the answer they wanted. But you're communicating and they understand.
Communication is key to everything. And it's like the you said, we did thing. So people can send all the feedback they want, but if you never reply to it, never recognise it, they just feel you're not listening. Even if you go back and say, heard you, can't do anything. They just connect with it so much more. So how important do you think then is values-driven leadership to your sectors?
Absolutely, I think it's really important, and I think, you know, having been in the NHS sector and the FE, similar in some ways, for me, those values are key. You know, I couldn't do my job if I was, as you said, it was a robot. It just wouldn't work. You need that genuine part of the values and everything.
Yeah, I don't think anybody who works in FE isn't sort of value driven in some respect. I mean, before FE, I worked in hospitality. And I always think it's a really great career for anyone who's young and wanting to learn work skills. But the real thing it teaches you is customer service, and that never leaves you.
Never, ever.
You know, and the ability to think on your feet, work under pressure, are skills you will need all through your life. And I think different industries aren't always as value driven as perhaps education or the NHS or other sectors. But you can learn something from each of them. But definitely FE being values driven. The system doesn't always allow you it doesn't feel like that all the time. So that's why it's useful to just go and talk to students every now and again, because they do just remind you as to why you do what you do. Yeah,
I go out and speak to clients and I try and learn where we're making mistakes. I'm pretty much on record saying we're about 80% of where we want to be, one in 5 mistakes. And there's no way that I'm ever going to make my organisation perfect if I don't engage with people. But we're also values-led, so our values are really simple and have been for a long time. We won an award for them last year. They're grow with Talentia. So grit, resilience, optimism and well-being. And it actually really helps that they're so easy to remember.
Yeah.
And it's also, we tell everyone, come and work for us because you'll grow with us. Yeah. And at first I laughed and went, these are crap. Because I was like, why does it spell grow? But since then, since understanding what my values mean to me and what they mean to the organisation, I approach every conversation with someone looking for what I'm looking for from that. So I make a hiring decision on whether someone makes me feel like they're connected with what I'm trying to bring to their table. And then it also helps that those values are labelled around the growth of them. So who's in charge of culture at your organisations?
I think for me it's everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, everybody has an influence on it. I think there is a role for governance and setting that direction. And there's the overarching principles of the college, and that does have more of an influence than I probably anticipated coming into this role. But it's I think it's fundamental that the governors are supportive of that. The strategic oversight of the college is really important, and the culture is really crucial to that. But ultimately, it's the culture that is developed by everybody in the organisation, whether that's managers who challenge performance, who don't deal with underperformance. You know, everything has a link back to the culture.
Very similar, again, to what Nikki just said. You know, from a governance point of view, I don't have a big governance team. That is the Leeds City College board, but I do have a link governor who comes in probably about once every half term, but he's also on the phone as well to me, talk about Printworks and everything happening in Printworks. It's not just one person. It's about, everybody's in it, from the students to the staff to the cleaners, everybody. You know, we have something here at Printworks called Connect Duty, which I introduced. And yes, it's the duty manager or the senior person, either deputy head or head, responsible for a day. However, we've changed it to Connect Duty so that those members of staff during that 4-hour period go out and connect with the students and staff around the campus and find out what's happening, and I think that's key.
Yeah, vital. I mean, 66% of colleges' spend should be on staffing. Culture impacts 66% of the college, but it probably impacts 100% of the staff student experience.
Yeah.
So it's really vital finding the right people. So we move on to the next section, which is all about employee value proposition. So for me, that's why people work at organisations. So why have they chosen to come and work for Leeds College of Building or Leeds City College? So what do you think is the most important part of your EVP to people? Why do they come and work with you?
I think for a lot of our staff, doing what we do, being the only college that delivers construction education, both in the city and having a national reputation. A lot of our staff were our students, and they've done that whole cycle of going out into the industry and then coming back. And whether that's about giving back or whether it's familiarity that's brought them back to the college, they've come back because they liked working in the environment. We have a lot of staff who've been with us a long time. Somebody who, when I started, had worked at the college longer than I'd been alive, which was quite extreme. Yeah. But there's a lot of long service, which I think says a lot. There's a lot of people who perhaps leave and then come back. I meet with every new member of staff, just a 15-minute sort of welcome to the college, if you like. But the reasons why people come to the college are really varied. I think that's reflective of FE. I don't think it's particular to our college. There's lots of reasons. It's very rare that you get somebody who says, I really wanted to work in an FE college.
They just stumble into it.
A lot of it is that. But when they get to find out more about the college, it's the connection to employers, it's working with students, and that direct impact they can have that keeps them, I think. Interesting.
I think, again, for me, it's about the people as well. We talk about, what, and I've spoken to a couple of new heads recently. So what made you leave your previous college to come here? And they said, it just seemed the right fit when they came for interview. And you can tell a lot by interview. And that's why I spend a lot of time especially for my management roles, you know, it's a full day, as you know, we've discussed this, where, you know, some of it is about meeting the team. You know, it's great having the formal interview, but also, and I need to speak to the other heads and deputy heads at Printworks to make sure people are the right fit, and that they want to come and work for us as well. So yeah, for me, and again, it goes back to a lot of those people have done that full circle. They want to give something back. Some of it is they definitely want to work in FE. Some of it they fall into FE. You know, so it depends on the sector, doesn't it?
It's interesting,
Yeah.
right? So we've got, I mean, the same, right? You could reverse it, but you've got people and purpose. So they come to the organisation for what the organisation does for people. They come to work at the organisation for working with people that have a purpose. I think it all interlinks, and I think you're totally right. FE is built on the back of its people. So beyond financial, beyond salary, what do you think colleges need to offer people to really attract top talent?
I think it's changed. I think whether it's the pandemic, whether it's cost of living, I think people are looking for that balance, flexibility, and the job with purpose. That I think that's important, more important, particularly to younger people coming through. You know, what are the sustainability values of the organisation they work for? What are the diversity values? You know, what are the values of an organisation, and how does that reflect their own values? I think that's coming through more and more. But I do think it's around the well-being aspect of work, as much as salary is a huge driver, and you can't get away from that. You know, how people respond when they're in work is done through the values and the culture that we've talked about. But I think well-being has definitely gone up in importance.
Yeah, I think since COVID hit, that has been the biggest driver for people, and I think as well, you know, it's as you said, you know, taking away salaries. It's about what other things like CPD. People are looking for that CPD, that progression, and also that part where can they actually come and teach part-time and still work part-time in their field. We've had a lot of that in hair and beauty, for example, where they still want to keep going and in the business, but also want to teach as well. So it's looking at flexibility about working in FE, which has changed a lot, I think.
Yeah, I think so, and that's the same in ours. I think people are looking for the development of work. It's not always linked to progression. It's just around being, you know, a better teacher, a better professional. You know, in whatever role they're doing, it's about providing the best service for the students. And I think that it is. I think those conversations are happening more and more frequently at that earlier stage.
So really interestingly, I think something you said there's a little bit flawed in around progression. So when I said progression, you've then said, well, actually, no, they want to be better teachers. To me, progression is mastery. It is the art of being brilliant as a teacher. Yeah. It is the art of getting better as a leader. It is being given skills that make you the best at your job. And I don't think you're alone in confusing when people say progression that actually they want title or salary. Progression can just be being absolutely rock star at what you do and that absolute mastery of something. And it's interesting, both of you have touched on kind of intrinsic motivators for people, which is to feel like they're part of something. It's to feel like they're good at something. And that's what we're bringing to work. So I think that's very interesting from both of you. So I'm not saying you're wrong there. I'm saying that lots of people are drawn down this rabbit hole of we can't progress everyone, but you can absolutely invest in your people from the get-go. If you could change or improve one area of the typical EVP in the sector, so what you offer your employees, what would it be? Avoid saying money.
I think it's bigger than money though, slightly. And I had this conversation with some new starts who come from industry a couple of weeks ago, actually during our recent visit we had. And I asked them why they decided that FE was their route. One of them was they wanted to work with students and everything. And I said, well, what about the other package and everything? And they went, the pension. So that was one thing. A lot of younger people now are thinking about the pension, and obviously the teacher's pension that we have is it is a benefit as well. So I think people forget that little bit as well.
Yeah, and it's very different to the construction sector. You know, with
you
the
get a
supply chain.
pension,
You actually get a
very
pension.
starter.
And it's you're right. People are looking at it in a different way. It does vary depending on where people are in their life. I've met a few new members of staff recently, and their reason for joining the college was they wanted to be at home with young children and be around. They don't want to travel up and down the country on whichever job that they're working on. And you know, the drivers for why people are joining the sector, you know, all do vary. But I do think that there is a difference starting to come through in terms of that, the balance in your life about people wanting to be around, you know, their family a little bit more. I think we all got used to it during COVID and realised the importance of it.
That was a great answer. I think thinking slightly outside the box, that actually people do want different stages. And earlier now, people are going on about pensions. They're talking about annual leave. So we're coming into the final section now, and this is all about your views on leadership. So this is about you two as leaders. We've got 10 years, how many? 12 years of leadership. So this is about you and how you engage. So what's your own approach or style of leadership? How do you go about is there a style for it, or what do you do?
No, I don't think there is. I think you just have to be able to respond in any given situation, and the ability to adapt is probably more important than being able to say I'm a certain type of leader. I think if you pigeonhole yourself into something, then it's just a label, and people need to see flexibility and somebody who's going to listen and respond as appropriate to the situation. I don't think that there is a certain style.
I think the only thing I would say, having worked for a number of leaders over the years in FE and in the NHS, mine would be to be approachable.
Yeah.
Purely. That would be the only thing I would say. As long as I've got that, I'm happy.
Yeah. Mine was to be consistent. I've for a long time, I struggle, I am ADHD, so I struggle sometimes to be consistent. Sometimes I'm a bit emotional, sometimes I'm low, sometimes I'm high. And in the last 3 or 4 years, what I've noticed is as I've become more mature, become more consistent, I find myself repeating myself, but I repeat myself on message so that people understand that is me. And although occasionally I might be more energetic or less energetic, I hold firm. What's a principle that you two have? What's something that you hang on to, that you use?
I don't know, it sounds like you're repeating yourself, but I absolutely agree. It's being accessible, so that people, you know, feel that they can come and talk to you about anything, you know. And the more you do it, the more people respond. Yep. And I think if you can lose the barriers that are put up, I mean, I'll give you 2 examples. We had in my office, we do these open door slots, and people come and, you know, talk to the senior team about whatever they want to talk about. And one person came in and he says, I haven't been in here since I had my interview. I was like, how long have you worked for the college? He said, 24 years. And I was like, you absolutely need to get out more. But there was this barrier between where the management team sit and where their department is. And it's getting past that, because the conversation you can then have with that person tells you so much more. But if they're sitting and not feeling like, I think there's a thing around listening, and I can't remember who said it, but people, they're waiting to interrupt, they're not listening.
2 ears, I might have to come back to it. It's that ability to listen and hear, not just hear.
Yeah, and not take it personally, which when you're the leader of an organisation is really hard.
That's the hardest bit.
Is to think, oh, crikey, well, now what do I need to do about that? But actually it's not always about you. And just being, you know, that humility to recognise actually sometimes it is about other things, and sometimes it is about you, and being, recognising that.
God, it's hard though, because it does feel personal. You get that. I mean, I don't know. You probably don't get 0-star reviews on Google, but when you see that negative feedback come back, and you think, could I have avoided that? What can I do better? I take it personally, and when people care, there's a lot of passion. They tend to take it personally. But
and actually thinking about that, and that's something I need to work on, because I do take things personally, even though I might not be the one who's been involved in the situation. But at the end of the day, if it's Team Printworks and something's happening within Printworks, I know that I do sometimes probably take it more personally than sometimes the heads of department do. So that's something I've probably got to learn even more now.
It's not all about you.
No.
Here's an interesting question. In life, we have people that we look up to. We have role models. We have people that we see on the internet, things that we consume. Have you guys got role models or people you admire or look up to in the sector or out of the sector?
There's two people, and one of them is the CEO of Illuminate, Colin Booth. I've worked with Colin since 2008, and I actually messaged him. He's actually retiring soon, which is going to be a huge loss to the sector. And I actually texted him when the email came out just to say, you were the one who gave me my first head's job in FE at another college, and I got my first SLT post under Colin's leadership. So for him, he's been a bit of a role model. And some other people in the sector as well, who I've worked for previously, Diane Murray, who was one of my first heads when I first came as a brand new, going to do my Cert Ed teaching and everything. So yeah, those are two people that really do stand out to me in my career.
Yeah, and I think it's different people at different points in your career. So I know that they're, and I wouldn't necessarily call them role models, because you're not trying to emulate them. But you definitely learn something from everybody you work, whether that's good or bad. How you don't want to do things, but actually, I often sit and think, do you know what? The voice in my head is the past principals that I've worked with, and you think, oh, damn it, they were right. And actually you learn through experience, and it's just taking that experience that they've had and have passed on, and applying it in your own way, so that it's that authentic thing again. You aren't trying to be the next, Colin, the next whatever. You're trying to be yourself, but learning from the mistakes and the influence that they've, had with you as well.
That's really interesting. I've taken that approach several times, is what not to do and what to stop doing, because actually a strategy can be just what do you need to stop doing to get ahead. Because sometimes you can just be, I said this phrase the other day, the fastest way to make money is to stop spending it. And that's it all ties in, right? It's what can we stop, and that's hugely important. You touched earlier that you were doing the Oxford ETF programme, but what other development are you doing as leaders? How are you growing?
Well, I did both programmes with the ETF. I'm not doing anything currently, but I think those programmes have longevity through the network. And actually, that's probably now how you learn the most, is going to other colleges. I went to Craven College last week, and you go and see, how other people are doing things. You take ideas, and I think that sometimes is CPD enough. I think maybe in another couple of years, look at something else, because I think it's good to get that external perspective sometimes.
No one at FE gatekeeps. No one in FE says, no, don't come and visit me and see how I do it. No. Everyone has a shared collective view that the best thing for the student is the best thing for everybody. So maybe they don't shout about things they do really great, but I don't think that comes from a place of hiding the thing they do great. I think that comes from maybe not knowing if they are great, but you go in and see these different programmes that are being run. A shout out to Blackpool College. They were doing super work-focused curriculum design, where they were getting employers enhancing the qualifications, still delivering to what was there, but then shifting the workshops around to match it and really going for it. And no one's going to shout about that. But if you wanted to go and visit, they'd let you in. What about you, Lee?
Last year, I did the DFE mentoring scheme with a lady called Esme Winch. Absolutely fantastic. It was great, because I'd just moved from the director of apprenticeship into the principal's job, and she was absolutely great, really good for my CPD and my development. The best thing that I've done, a bit like Nicky just said, visiting other colleges. So we're at the moment doing some work around engineering and around digital. A couple of weeks ago we went down to Barnsley College. We're off to Cleveland College in next week actually, to look at engineering. So yeah, for me, the best thing is actually going and visiting other colleges. That's the bit I do like.
Yeah, I put you in touch with Hopwood, with Paul.
Yeah.
So yeah, and now I've seen you actively seek out opportunity to go and learn. So FE needs its leaders. That's clear. I can see from you two, you're very strong, prominent leaders in the space. What's your advice to the next leader? Why be a leader in FE?
I mean, I'm nearly in May it'll be 3 years. I think I've been doing this job. I only just think that I'm getting the hang of it. So I don't feel really well placed to offer advice to people. Apart from you should be resilient. You should learn to adapt because it never stands still. Every single day is different. And stuff comes out of the woodwork that you just think, well, where did that come from?
Surprise!
You know, and you just have to be able, and I think that goes back to anybody who's worked in hospitality knows how to manage
Think on your
that,
feet.
you know, and I think that's the most important thing is be able to think on your feet, but don't think you've got all the answers because you haven't, and you've got people around you who do probably have the answers.
Again, yeah, be ready for the unexpected. And I think that goes back to my nurse training when I worked in A&E. To be fair, what's happening next? And I think, yeah, it's not about me having all the answers or leaders having all the answers. You know, I have a great network within Illuminate, you know, my line manager, Bill Jones, and Gemma, the deputy CEO as well, who are always there for me as well. And they'll give me the time if I've got an issue. Yeah, I'm not asking them for the solution. It might be, this is one of the solutions, what do you think? As that second opinion.
Yeah.
But even Nikki, I can ring Nikki up and, across the road. Or when we see each other,
You have
say,
to bribe her with coffee, from what I heard.
Absolutely,
This morning, but
yeah.
as long as we get a free coffee card, we'll be just fine.
Yeah.
So, to quote Janet Smith from Nottingham, the only constant in FE is change. So what do we see happening over the next 5 years? What are the biggest challenges that college leaders are going to have to face?
I think at the moment probably finance is going to be a huge challenge. I think, for West Yorkshire and probably a lot of the devolved, obviously the adult education budget, because we're not here just for 16 to 18 year olds, where I think a lot of people outside think, oh, it's 16 to 18 year olds. We're here from 16 to whatever age. We had a 66-year-old apprentice butcher a few years ago.
Brilliant.
On one of our courses. I think that's going to be a challenge moving forward. And space.
Yeah.
Space is a big issue a very big issue for the region.
But yeah, it's a huge issue for the city, and it has a direct impact on local young people and the opportunities they can have. And I think one of our issues, I agree, finance is always going to be up there, but our lack of ability to respond, because we're part of the public sector now, and all of the managing public money rules that have come with that, which on one hand you absolutely understand, you treat public money with respect. But it's made things less agile, less flexible. We can't respond in a way that we want to because of some of those rules. And that's not the sector way of doing things. It should be quicker. And now you're hampered by a system.
And you're also not on the same playing field as the public sector, because we've been left out of pay rises, we're left out of VAT clauses, we're left out of funding rules. Yeah. We're not seeing equal treatment in further education.
No, it's public sector when it suits.
Yeah, of course, it's on their terms, as it always is.
And it's keeping up with those changes for the students. Not, if you think, we've just developed a new department here, the Sustainable Technology and Motor Vehicle, but investment will be needed to make sure that we've got the right equipment preparing the students of the future workforce. Yeah.
The challenges we have.
Yeah.
So that's it. We are absolutely finished. There are no more questions. I think you both have given a great account of yourselves. Is there one last bit of advice that you'd throw out into the world about FE and what we want to highlight?
I think for me it would be around trust. We've talked about people who are in FE for values, and wanting to do the right thing for the student. Wanting to do the right thing for the employer, and we're the largest apprenticeship provider of construction apprenticeships in the country, and we want that to grow because we know what the skills crisis is like out there at the moment, and it's only going to get worse if we don't do something radical. But it does require government to trust that FE can deliver. We just need some of the constraints that have been placed on us to be removed. And I do genuinely, I think it is changing, but I certainly think previously that there was a lack of trust or understanding in what FE actually does.
Very similar, and I would say FE is a gem that needs protecting.
Love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap.
Nice. Very nice.
We'll do it again.